Hey everyone, PC Casual Gaming Net here back again, and this time we're going to be watching a couple of videos regarding Final Fantasy XIV. Josh Strife Hayes is a YouTuber that is, in my opinion, very real, very raw, very critical in a lot of ways, and I appreciate and respect people's opinion of this nature. I've watched videos of his in the past, especially the one that I really liked was about Ashes of Creation and the hype behind it and how hype can kill games because the expectations and whatnot. Well, he recently made some ones about Final Fantasy XIV. In this case, this first one is about that, and it has it killed World of Warcraft. And so I'm very curious to see, what he has to say about it. So let's get into it. If you like what you see, please consider following me on Twitch and like and subscribe on YouTube as well. I upload these videos, usually later in the week or the following week after my streams. So if you do that, it really just motivates me to want to, to continue to create this type of content, But nonetheless, let's watch.
Final Fantasy XIV killed World of Warcraft? Has the Western king of MMOs been dethroned by the Eastern Prince? Has the clickbait title got this video more views than normal? Let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes. Over the last few years, the MMORPG landscape has been dominated by 5 major MMO games. World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, The Elder Scrolls Online.
I love his Pokemon figures here, especially that Eevee.
And RuneScape. And of these 5, World of Warcraft.
Hold on just a second.
Guild Wars 2, The Elder Scrolls Online, and RuneScape. And of these 5, World of Warcraft has stood head and shoulders above all the others in terms of players. It's been an absolute dominant force in the MMORPG landscape. And because of this, every time a new...
My son would love this guy's just background. This is what he would strive for. He loves collecting games and whatnot.
MMORPG is announced or released, people always ask, is this the WoW killer? Will this dethrone the king? But it turns out World of Warcraft's biggest enemy wasn't another game. It was World of Warcraft itself. It turns out all the other MMOs had to actually do...
Just notice here the Snorlax Cup too. I love this guy.
As World of Warcraft messed up its own game and butchered its own player base, and then be there to...
Yep.
The World of Warcraft refugees that would eventually flock to them. Turns out all the other MMOs had to do was wait until people got sick of WoW and then welcome the refugee players. And it turns out that the game to do that might be Final Fantasy XIV. Let's discuss why. Before we begin, consider dropping a like on the video or subbing to
I've never played Final Fantasy XIV.
Videos, and a big shout out to the Patreon supporters. It is getting close to another font size reduction. More on this at the end. For now, let's start by discussing the idea that World of Warcraft can be killed, and if that were possible, how would it happen? Because it's a rather strange phenomenon. Right now, there are multiple MMOs all surviving. The big 5 and many smaller ones. And even if an MMO isn't number 1, it can still have a player base and make money. So it's not a case of there can be only one. MMORPG games aren't Highlanders. However, MMOs are games that people invest years of their life into. They're often so big they take hundreds or thousands of hours to fully explore, and so people want to pick the right one. This means not just finding a game they enjoy, or a game their friends play. It also means, and this is extremely important to a lot of players, finding a game that will definitely survive. No one wants to play a dying or dead MMO, because then your years of investment in your character might be taken away if the game does shut down. This puts MMOs into a really dangerous position. If people think your game is dying, people won't play it. And if people don't play, the game dies. It's a cycle, a horrible death spiral that's hard as hell to recover from, if possible at all. If you run an MMO, the last thing you want is the public to think your game is dying, because that could cascade very quickly into a massive player exodus. So multiple MMORPGs can coexist together. In fact, some would consider this essential for the genre to continue because competition breeds excellence. World of Warcraft is in danger from other games simply existing. But if people think your game is dying, this can potentially start an almost unstoppable cycle.
Or if you have 2.2 million followers on Twitch and you stop playing the game and you go to another game, people are naturally going to follow that. So
players will Google your game and see people saying it's dying and so not join the game. And because new people aren't joining the game, your game ends up dying. It becomes this absolute domino effect of as soon as the public think it's not worth getting invested in, the public don't invest in it. And then the current player base realise there's no new blood coming into the game begins to stagnate and slowly die off. MMORPGs...
Why does he have 2 copies of Neverwinter? I love this game. Or maybe one of them is the expansion box. Maybe that's what it is. I can't really tell.
Need to hit a critical mass of players on release to be enjoyable for the first few weeks, and then maintain this critical mass of players every expansion, every year, as they go on to remain enjoyable for both the people who are playing them now and the new people they want to come and join them. And while World of Warcraft may still be one of the strongest, most played games of all time, dropping from the number 1 spot to the number 2 spot, that's a pretty big signal. That's a pretty big indicator that the king is not untouchable. That World of Warcraft, that has enjoyed genre dominance for so long, might be floundering. And while it's not an unplayed game, while it's not a dead or a dying game, dropping from 1 to 2, that could start the first domino falling. So surely to beat World of Warcraft, all you need to do is release an objectively better game. Well, no, not really. Because you're not just trying to get people to play a game. You're trying to remove people from an established culture and move them over to yours. I've already discussed why you can't kill World of Warcraft on my other videos. An MMO game isn't just a video game. It's a community, millions strong. It's a subculture, a friendship group, a clan, a guild, a personal connection to your character and the adventures they've been on. When you invest years of your life into anything, you form an emotional connection with that thing, and breaking that connection can be extremely difficult. It's the same as anything. A favourite TV show, a favourite band, a favourite person. Even if something objectively better comes along, you might not like that thing more. Even if they change over the years for the worse, the emotional connection will stay. Very few people can completely emotionally disconnect and drop years of bonding for something else. If a new MMORPG released today that was superior to every single MMO on the market in every conceivable way, it still wouldn't get all of the players, because people would stick to what they know and what they've come to love. We are emotional creatures. We get attached to things, even if we shouldn't. So a new game has to be not only great in terms of mechanics and graphics and player involvement, it needs to be so unimaginably great it actually destroys years of emotional build-up and commitment to other games and brings an established community over to it, which is just extremely unlikely to happen. There's similarities between playing an MMO you hate just because you've played it for so long and staying in a job you hate, or being friends or in a relationship with a person you hate just because it's familiar and you've got history. It's comfortable in an awful way. It's a habit. In some cases, it becomes an addiction. So killing World of Warcraft isn't just a case of making a better game. It's a case of overcoming years of entrenched emotional bonds and personal connections. It's trying to get people to quit an addiction. Because to make
people have a love-hate relationship with games like World of Warcraft, you know. The only other MMO that I played a couple others. One of them was Star Wars: The Old Republic, and that one was kind of small, short-lived, so I didn't invest too much in it, so it was pretty easy for me to pull out of that. But the other game was Lord of the Rings Online, and I played that game for years. And what finally got me out of that game completely, I had stopped playing for a while, and then I came back. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I came back, I played for a couple hundred more hours. Was really that I just didn't have anyone to play with. It was just me by myself. I had originally played it with family, and that's what made it really enjoyable and fun for me. Well, more so, I should say. But the game really became a little more stale. So for having those people to play with, that's what kind of kept me going. But I kind of got to this culminating part in the story, and since I didn't have anyone else, and I put my time in, that was it. And I haven't gone back since, and I don't think I ever will. And I feel like with WoW, that's kind of the case as well. If I didn't have people to play with, I probably would stop playing. I probably would. You know, I'd get my little bit of enjoyment out of it. Maybe when they release new content or something, I'd go and try it for 2 or 3 months, and then I'd go back, and then that would be it. You know, even now, like I still take, like in February, I took 3 more than 3 months off. You know, I unsubbed and I didn't come back, and I'm planning to do the same in like a month or two. You know, just take a break after 9.1 for a bit. You know.
Many people, that's exactly what World of Warcraft is, and this doesn't actually happen very often. Even in cases when people do leave their favourite MMORPG and go and play a new MMO that's just released, they often return to their old favourite within a few days, weeks, or sometimes months. Because the game they know, the game they're good at, is comfortable. And people like being comfortable. When you spend years building up an understanding or a connection, you feel safe and secure in any position, be that a job, a relationship, or an MMO. And these year-long comforts can feel nice. Unfortunately, when people try a new MMO, they often expect to feel the same level of comfort and security within only a few days or a few weeks that previously took them years to build up in their other game. People often want the feeling of complete familiarity while also being something completely new. They want to feel they've been there for years while also being amazed with a new experience. They want novelty and familiarity combined.
That's a
Imagine
little
leaving a
difficult.
several year-long relationship with someone you've grown to understand extremely well. When you start dating somebody else, you won't have that same deep level of understanding. You will need to work on it, and sometimes people don't want to work on it. They miss the old level of familiarity. They miss all the effort
They do.
previously put in and don't want to put it in again, so they just go back to what they knew, even if it's not good for them or what they actually want. So if World of Warcraft is more than just a game, surely making another game isn't going to kill it, and that's absolutely right. World of Warcraft is a community, a personality. It is a hobby, a habit, in some cases an addiction. It is a personal love, a history, a memory. It's part of who you are, and a new game existing or being made isn't going to delete all of that. No other game is going to be responsible for destroying Warcraft's community. No other game is going to be responsible for tainting your memories of it. No other game is going to make World of Warcraft worse. Only World of Warcraft can do that to itself.
Earn your degree faster.
I agree.
Purdue University Global. With over
Do I want to
175
become
online
famous?
programs.
No, thank you.
And that is what we are seeing starting to happen. If you have a toxic friend or you're in a bad relationship, no matter how many better people you meet or how many people tell you it's a bad relationship, it often isn't someone else who changes your mind about that toxic person. It's the person themselves finally doing something you can't take, or finally annoying you for so long you just run out of patience. If you have a job you hate, you don't
play a
often
game for
leave
days,
because
2
another
months, and move on.
slightly better job is
Cyberpunk 80%.
hiring. You leave because your
Yeah,
current job does something
Cyberpunk.
bad enough to
What a
push you
laughable
away.
story.
The comfort at your current terrible job needs to be overcome to such an extreme degree, you finally leave. Humans stick around in situations long after we should have left because we have misplaced senses of loyalty, commitment, or toxic familiarity. And the catalyst that makes us finally move on often comes from the awful situation itself reaching new, unbearable levels of awfulness. World of Warcraft has franchise recognition, it has money, it has a long-term addicted playbase, it has everything it needs to succeed, and it doesn't have to worry about other games killing it. It does have to worry, however, about it slowly killing itself. The most successful update World of Warcraft has released in the last 5 years was World of Warcraft Classic. This means the best received update was the removal of 17 years of updates. The current staff of Activision Blizzard today, working on World of Warcraft right now, are not the original Blizzard staff of 2004. The team that made World of Warcraft originally are long gone. They've been replaced with cash shop mounts, account boosts, and lackluster expansion packs. World of Warcraft's subscriber base has been dropping at a consistent rate. It's actually dropped 41% since the latest expansion pack, Shadowlands, launched. Players return for the launch of a new expansion, play through it, and then leave. Why don't they stick around? It's because they're caught in the abusive gaming cycle of hoping it will be as good as it used.
That was me. 3 months, and I just wanted a break because I knew if I didn't, that I would just not be able to keep playing the game.
Used to be, hoping it will be the experience they remember, and then realizing...
And I'm not even a long-time player of the game. I started in Legion.
Just
2016.
isn't. No single game has done more damage to World of Warcraft than World of Warcraft. And just like every bad relationship, every awful job, every toxic friendship, we are starting to reach the breaking point, and even the strongly addicted and franchised players are starting to leave. Asmongold, the world's largest World of Warcraft streamer, started playing Final Fantasy XIV, and it was his most viewed stream in months. Jesse Cox put out the video 15 years of WoW versus 1 year of FF14, and WoW refugees flocked to it. There was even a game report recently saying the daily active player count for FF14 was closing the gap on World of Warcraft and was poised to overtake it very soon. Ultimately, World of Warcraft hasn't been taken down by another game releasing and being better than it. World of Warcraft has been damaged, harmed, and is starting to be taken down by World of Warcraft no longer being as good as World of Warcraft once was. If you want to imagine this situation without any of the emotional bonds, without the sunk cost fallacy, without any pre-established connections, imagine this. Imagine World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV both didn't exist. You have no history with them. No one does. No one's heard of them before. And then imagine they both release, as they are right now, today. They both hit the MMORPG scene at the same time, with the graphics they've got now, and all the content they've got now, and all the leveling they've got now. Everything as it is right now. In that case, do you think World of Warcraft would do better than Final Fantasy XIV? With no sunk cost fallacy and no emotional connection to either of the games?
Probably not.
Which of them do you think would do better if they both released on the same day? Personally, I think more people would choose Final Fantasy XIV. I think right now we are seeing the result of Activision Blizzard consistently failing the player base. We are seeing the result of years and years of underwhelming updates. Expensive, unfulfilling expansions that remove more content than they add and contribute to parasitic gameplay design, including limited time systems and dropped mechanics every year. Sometimes
Borrowed power. Stop.
with substantial class changes that miss the mark and upset the player base. We are seeing the beginnings of an exodus within the World of Warcraft player base to any other game. And it just so happens Final Fantasy XIV, with its massive free trial, is welcoming the disenfranchised WoW players and picking up the pieces. Final Fantasy XIV did not kill World of Warcraft. Final Fantasy XIV has been focused on being the best MMORPG it can be over several years. World of Warcraft killed World of Warcraft through years of bad updates, not listening to the community, and simply not being as good as it could be. But this shouldn't really come as a shock to Blizzard, because as they taught us themselves many years ago, no king rules forever. Thank you for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel going.
No king lasts forever. You know, I'm a fan of World of Warcraft. The reason why I finally started playing it was because, you know, I played Warcraft 2, and I played Warcraft 3, and I loved that universe and that world and the characters and the races, the NPCs especially. You know, I really loved that about it. So when I finally sat down and played, it was really because I had friends that were playing it, and I enjoyed it. Legion was an amazing expansion to play in. I mean, it really was. It was just such a culmination. I don't think it's been as good since then. The last two expansions, you know, I mean, Shadowlands isn't done yet, but I don't have high hopes for it. So, but I agree with him. You know, it's not other games. You know, and I think that if both games released at the same time right now, Final Fantasy XIV would probably do better. Even though I haven't played it, from what people have said and from what I've seen, you know, and from my experience now that I know about WoW and the current state that retail is, you know, that's why lots of people are flocking to Classic. But that's why I don't think WoW is going to die completely, because they do have Classic, and TBC is the second, and the next one is a big one. You know, Wrath of the Lich King is a big one. I mean, I'm probably going to play it just because I've heard such great things. People really enjoyed that time. So I'm sure as long as I have friends to play with, I'll play it. So, all right. But next up, I do want to see, since we're talking about some positives, Final Fantasy XIV, let's check out this video he made about how it's sold out.
I'm Dr. Justin C. Lin. I'm a doctor of physical therapy who practices.
Final Fantasy XIV just sold out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm
double-barrel name, British accent, very well dressed in his videos. But he...
double-barreled British, very well-dressed man. And if you've been joining me on my Twitch streams that normally have...
Hey, I didn't know Beliar commented on him.
You've been playing some Final Fantasy XIV with me. You've been joining me as I adventure through the land of Eorzea, along with every major streamer, to be honest. Belialar's tried it, Asmongold's trying it. Everyone is giving Final Fantasy XIV a go. In fact, so many people are trying Final Fantasy XIV that momentarily the Square Enix store actually sold out. It sold out of an MMO RPG. Don't worry, it's not...
Real quick, just an interesting announcement. Currently, I got some New World closed beta keys. Wow, okay. That's kind of interesting. I didn't expect that. Wow. All right. There we go.
Hit the character cap, there are still server spaces left, but the recent surge of players was unprecedented. Over the last 2 weeks, Final Fantasy XIV has seen a massive boost in popularity, but it wasn't always smooth sailing for this game. So let's...
And yes, I know I just put that here on my stream, but there's only one person watching, so if you want one of those keys, just, let me know, and you're certainly free to have one.
Look back at its awful beginnings and examine one of
Or
the
you can
greatest
just not tell
comeback
me.
stories in MMO history. Before we begin, consider dropping a like on the video or subscribing to the channel for more MMO stuff. Ring the bell for all the future videos, and a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch. More on this at the end. For now, let's begin. MMORPGs are incredibly expensive and complicated to make, and they are one of the riskiest genres to go into. It is highly likely if you make an MMORPG, you will not see a return on investment. You need hundreds of people, thousands of hours, and millions of pounds. You need skilled developers, skilled designers, level creators, musicians, voiceover artists, network architects, public relations, marketing. Every single person in your team needs to have such an incredibly complex skill set. It's hard to even find a group that could make an MMORPG, never mind actually make one. If an MMO launches and fails, chances are you're bankrupt, because you've just spent tens of thousands of hours and potentially tens of millions of pounds developing a product that you're not going to see a return on investment on. If you'd spent years of your life and millions of pounds developing a game and it didn't do very well, what do? Well, Final Fantasy XIV knows the answer to this, because when it first launched, it did not do well. Final Fantasy
It
XIV
didn't.
version
That's what I heard.
1.0 was not good, releasing in 2010 and shutting down only 2 years later in 2012. It did not sell well, and it did not impress the reviewers, with IGN...
So just an FYI, I am a member of the New World Creator Program, which means that I signed up as a content creator. So I do need to disclose that. So anyone who wants keys, or if, for example, you're viewing, you wanted a key, that I got to make sure that I did, that I'm open about that, and then that's the reason why I got those keys. So.
And only giving it 5.5 out of 10, and PC Gamer marking it at 30%. In the first few months, it only sold around 600,000 copies, which sounds a lot, but for an MMO is not that many. Safe to say, Final Fantasy XIV was a flop. Critics called it broken, an incomplete mess, saying it was released long before it was ready. The combat system and the experience was overly grindy, and the crafting and skilling system had convoluted interfaces and were riddled with bugs. It wasn't all bad. The music was top-notch, and the leveling and job system was widely praised in itself, but small elements of brilliance within an overall awful experience can't save a game. Now, critics and players did agree on one general point. Eorzea was not a terrible fictional land. There was potential there, but Final Fantasy XIV version 1.0 definitely wasn't realizing that potential. Now, this wasn't just a case of releasing a patch. or an update or an expansion pack that would fix things, because the things that were the problems, the bugs, the menu, the UI, the combat, that was all stuff at the foundation level. That was inherent in the building blocks of the game. That was an engine issue. The only way they would be able to fix the major flaws that Final Fantasy XIV version 1.0 actually had was to scrap absolutely everything, go back to the very foundation level of game creation and rebuild the whole thing from scratch. And that's what they did. At the 2011 Tokyo Game Show, Square Enix issued an official apology to the fans and the players, saying the Final Fantasy brand had been greatly damaged. Square Enix admitted fault. They openly admitted they could do better, and they asked for forgiveness. And to mark this momentous event in-game, the Final Fantasy XIV version 1.0 servers were merged, and in November of 2012, all players were invited to an apocalyptic, world-destroying in-game event, where the in-game lore saw an actual calamity happen, and the real-life servers shut down to match the timings. As bad as this was, this is a fantastic way to see your game off, with an actual in-game apocalyptic calamity ending everything for the developers and the players. With blame admitted and Final Fantasy XIV version 1.0 blown up and scrapped, they set about to do what very few companies would ever have the money or the time or the skill to do. They started again from a completely blank slate. They remade the entire game, but so much better. Final Fantasy XIV version 2.0 began to take shape, and they actually decided to include the destruction of version 1 as inspiration for their in-game lore. They added the subtitle A Realm Reborn, and when you start playing Final Fantasy XIV now, you will hear about the calamity, the destruction of the world, and how no one can seem to remember what happened years ago. Square Enix had not only admitted their failures, they had used them to influence the new Reborn game's lore. The calamity was a real event. It did really happen, and there are other references to version 1.0 of the game spread throughout A Realm Reborn. To spend years of your life and millions of pounds making an MMO is one thing. To release it and have negative feedback and negative critical reception, that sucks. To then blow up your own game because it's not as good as you could make it, that's pretty ballsy. But to then
Very ballsy.
actual destruction of your game and rebuild it from the ground up using that destruction as the new game's lore, that's genius. Square Enix
Pretty awesome.
knew they could do better. They knew Final Fantasy XIV could be something magical, and version 1.0 definitely wasn't it. So when they released version 2.0, they did quite a lot better. Releasing in 2013, A Realm Reborn was critically praised, gathering multiple 5-star reviews and a 9.5 out of 10 from Forbes, also winning MMO of the Year from Game Informer. It's safe to say the gamble to destroy version 1 and build version 2 paid off.
The
Final
ultimate
Fantasy
weapon.
XIV A Realm Reborn went from strength to strength, releasing major expansion packs: Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and coming soon, Endwalker. And each expansion pack was exceptionally well received, and this leads us to now. With major streaming personalities like Asmongold trying the game on Twitch and gaining several million views, and major gaming sites reporting on the game's sudden renaissance, it has been met with so many people trying to download it at once right now that the Square Enix site momentarily sold out of digital download codes. Digital codes are generated to authenticate the game when you launch it and connect it to the servers. The limitation is usually based on how many players the current servers can handle, or how many new players they're expecting on a week's basis. To reach that limit with an MMORPG is not completely unheard of, but it's still a very rare occurrence. It shows that player demand for the game is higher than Square Enix were expecting right now, and Square Enix will need to react to that and provide more servers, which I assume they're more than happy to do. Final Fantasy XIV is full of redemption arcs. It's a story-driven RPG with an MMO tacked onto the side of it. And Square Enix went through their own real-life redemption and improvement arc. They released a game, it sucked. They admitted it sucked, they blew it up, they learned from their mistake, and then they released one of the best MMOs ever made. I think over the next few weeks and months we'll see just how much player retention power Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn really has. And personally, I'm confident it will not only hold its impressive boost within the MMO world, but it will continue to push this advantage. Final Fantasy XIV knows what it's like to fail. They know what it's like to rebuild, and they know that players nowadays will accept nothing less than the absolute best the team can do. And in case you didn't know, there is a free trial, which contains the entire base game and the first major expansion pack, Heaven's Ward, with no time limit. And PlayStation, PC and Mac players all play together. The boost in players Final Fantasy XIV has seen over the last few weeks has been absolutely unprecedented, and I hope it continues. I've been having an absolute blast playing on the Omega server. If you're around, feel free to add me or drop me a message and say hi. It's lovely to talk to people, and I'm loving doing all the raids and dungeons with you guys on stream. But I want to know about your experiences with this game. Were you around before the calamity happened? Did you join when A Realm Reborn first released? Or have you joined this surge of players and you're experiencing Eorzea for the first time? Let me know in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in game sometime. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel going. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter.
Nice. Honestly, that's crazy. I actually did not know that story. Shows you how in touch with these games I am. But that's a really cool redemption arc, honestly. Like, that reminds me of some other games too that I've had. But I mean, that takes balls, really. It takes guts what they did, you know, and then using the lore of the game to do that too. That's awesome. Favorite Final Fantasy XIV food item? Let's see what he said. You know, annoyingly, I've not had a chance to get in the cooking set, but when I do, I'll drop you a message. Free food is a big pull. See if he ever got around to that. He has not. About trying to find an apartment in terms. Hardest to get a house in the game. It's true. I ran out of digital versions to sell. It's got to be some massive bragging rights from now on. Normal, and you can watch Sprouse. Okay. Yep, the MMO we didn't know we wanted because we were so consumed by our abusive relationship with the previous MMO. Yeah, sounds about right. Sounds about right. Well, that's interesting. No. Dang, his subscriber base just keeps climbing, you know. Oh, you know what? Maybe we should watch this one too, because I remember seeing this. This is Carnage's first impression since he played it too, so that would be kind of interesting, you know, since we're exploring Final Fantasy XIV a little bit more.
All right, here we go. Let's take a look at this.
So this is Asmongold's video and his reaction to this guy's first impression.
So as a lot of you guys may or may not know, Carnage has been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV. I think he started even before I did, and I'm actually really curious to hear what he says.
Go here.
Oh, he grinded 2.0
Sorry, I've
release?
been a
I
little
didn't
bit
know that.
absent lately. Wanted to explain the situation, give you guys a little update. So, as many of you guys know, especially those that frequent YouTube and Twitch, I am in a Final Fantasy XIV hole. Yes, I am. I'm having a great time in Final Fantasy.
See, you know how he said he's in a hole, and he's like, you know, the implication is like he's like devoting his life to it, and he said it with a smile. He was so happy. That's what gamers are waiting for. That's what they're looking for right there.
14. You know, I started
Yeah,
this as a charity
that's
goal
what they're
to
looking
Main
for.
Story. My big caveat was that I was going to do it at my own pace. Well, it turns out my own pace is a little bit quicker than I thought it would be. I
Yeah.
was thinking that most likely I would play the game and, you know, probably not get hooked, and I would just play it a little bit here and there in the cozy stream, just do the main story, you know, while I played other games. Turns out, for I think the second time in my gaming career, the first time being EverQuest, I have successfully fully returned to an MMO. I am just about as surprised as you guys are. As
Wow.
I've talked many times in the past about the kind of fire
Wow.
that you get when you
MMO
start an
gamer.
What happens to me and what
Yeah,
has
see, Ko's a little bit older than I am, so he played EverQuest. Like, I know there was like people like whenever I was a freshman in high school, there were like seniors that played EverQuest, but I always thought that game was for losers. I'm gonna be honest, like I hated EverQuest and I never got into it.
I never played it either. I just took play my
I did. I
mother.
thought that's
if
what I
will
thought,
start
man.
an MMO, I will become completely invested. And a good way to think about that is it starts a little fire burning in you, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those feelings where you play other games and you're just thinking about playing that game.
Yeah.
Where you go to bed and you wake up and you're like, man, I can't wait to jump back in. And that's how I
Exactly.
feel when I get really kind of hooked in most MMOs. Now,
I haven't gotten hooked like that in a while, but when I played my first MMO, Lord of the Rings Online, every night I was looking forward to playing that with my brother, and that was a lot of fun. The only other game that's really done that for me, I think, is I definitely like playing Warcraft 3 a lot. Diablo 2 was good. Diablo 3 for like a little bit just because it was a fresh Diablo experience for a while, for maybe the first like 250, 300 hours, and then after that, not as much.
on the
It feels
flip
so
side of
good,
that-
man.
On the flip side of that, what generally happens to me is as I start getting to the tail of an MMO, I'm logging in and there's not a lot to do. I got my gear in the raids and there's not a lot of new content.
Yeah.
What happens is that fire starts to go out.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
for almost every MMO that I've played, it is almost impossible to reignite that fire. And I've tried. I've tried that for games like Rift. I've tried that for games like Warhammer.
See, for me, I've never had that problem. Like, I've always been okay with just playing a game for a while, and then after that, I'm just done with it. And I stop, and I'm like, okay, this was fun for a while, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to get back into it, man.
I'm like that with
That's
most
always
games.
been like my, that's always been...
I'm like that with most games, but I do like a game that I can have around because I don't usually play just one game, you know. I do like to have a game like for me like Diablo was like I'm hoping Diablo 4 will be that game that I can just play for years like on and off, you know what I mean?
From my perspective, like I've taken breaks from MMOs and then come back. Like it's almost good for me to take a break so I can like fully
same.
invest in like grinding 100%. Because sometimes ever a new patch would come out and I had already been grinding, it just takes me like a week to finish the patch and then I'm fucking done with that too. But if I wait for like maybe a few patches and before I really go hard and then I just fucking farm, like I've got 12 hours of content every fucking day.
Try to return to Age of Conan back in the day. Another game that I've seemed to be able to return to well is a game called EverQuest. And EverQuest every so often releases these things called progression servers, where it basically like resets the game back to when it came out. WoW has done something similar with WoW Classic.
Oh yeah.
And I have found that just due to my love of the world that I've been able to return to EQ. I've had a great time on multiple progression servers. We've had coalition guilds.
Yeah,
It's actually been a lot of fun. I'll probably return to EQ again in the future in some kind of cozy or casual
I
capacity.
could just never
And those
do
have
it,
been
man.
fun. So when I made this Final Fantasy thing, I was pretty much expecting to treat it like a single player RPG.
Yeah.
Where it's just like I agreed to do the story. I agreed to come back in.
Pop off,
Not
do what
really
you need
thinking
to
that fire's going to be reignited because I know my history and I know it doesn't really happen, and I'm just going to kind of slowly meander through it.
Yeah.
Well, I was wrong. And I think a big part of that is due to the incredibly warm reception of the Final Fantasy XIV community. I think a big part of it is the fact that I'm able to play with 511 of you every single day. and
Oh,
it's
he's
been
got the
an
guild.
absolute joy. We have an extremely active FC of players that have kind of been helping me raiding and just being an overall.
I want to
That's
say
awesome.
like, these two main reasons. The two reasons that he thought of first, right? I mean, obviously these might not be like in order in terms of like why, but like at
The
least
eyebrows. Watch
two
the
that
eyebrows.
he thought of first were people. It was people that he
Yep.
thought of, and family. Yeah, exactly.
That's how it was for me with all my other games. You know, so many games I played in the past, it was because of the people I was playing with, and oftentimes these multiplayer games, it's really what it's about.
Family. That's what gets
Connections with people.
people invested in games, man. That's what gets people involved in these games, man. And if you have that, if you fucking have that, your game is gonna go as far as you want it to. That's the truth. Like, having a community, that's the one thing that I think Final Fantasy really hits better than WoW. Like, you can talk about raids. Raids is like you can compare and contrast all day. PvP, compare and contrast all day. Armor, combat, etc. Compare and contrast all day. But the one thing that I think Final Fantasy does unilaterally have over WoW is that it has a more active and a more passionate community. Because the community's been really positive to me too, right? I mean, they definitely have. Now, obviously, you know, like if I was negative about the game, I don't think it would have been that much the case. But overall, I have had criticisms about Final Fantasy, and people didn't mauled out over it, right? Whenever I said, like, I didn't like how there was, like, the animation, like, you were animation locked and stuff like that, I didn't like that. And, like, people were like, yeah, I can see why you feel that way. Or, you know, I was said, like, it's annoying to use the store and, like, buy the game and everything. Like, people were like, yeah, that's true. And so I think that to a certain degree, for me, like, because also y'all got to remember, like, I am very used to dealing, like, you guys compare us to, like, Quinn or whatever, right? But, like, I'm saying, like, for me, like, I am so used to dealing with fucking people getting mad. Like, I already, like, whenever I say anything, I'm already calculating how mad somebody could get based off of this statement.
We go on giant fishing trips pretty much. We now have a nightly fishing trip at 8 p.m.
That's cool.
Where literally pretty much half the guild that is online, which is generally tons and tons of players, we all meet up in Limsa and we just go on a big fishing trip. It's been really, really cool, and I'm really enjoying my time.
Yeah, that's badass.
3 different classes now. I've kind of settled on Samurai. I've got another class I haven't even played yet. I'm actually really enjoying the main story, especially after 2.0. Funny enough, I've enjoyed the 2.0 post content more than I did the pre content.
Really? That's what I'm on.
I'm working to, and I'm not even to the good stuff yet. That's the part
yeah,
that's crazy.
That's the part I'm on.
The good stuff yet. The good stuff.
Fuck yeah.
Is from all accounts that I've heard.
It's in Heaven's Ward.
The stuff that really picks up in Heaven's Ward.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
Into
Storm
something.
Yeah, Stormheim.
And then there's a Shadow. I don't really know, but I know that there's 3
Stormblood.
expansions to go through, and apparently they're really good. Stormblood, thank you, and then Shadow.
You're welcome.
Bringers. Yeah. And I'm actually at this point pumped to get to them. Like I'm excited to get to them, which is one of the reasons I'm playing them so much. Now, let's go back to the purpose of this video. I'm super enjoying it. I'm having a great time. I'm pretty much playing it each day between like 6 and 8 hours.
That's a good start.
Damn. That's a good start. That's a lot. That's a lot. Casual gaming dad here. A few hours is really most of the time.
Streams lately because I figure it's a good opportunity to not only
good money.
make some extra money, which is pretty much all going into the new house I recently purchased, but it's also a good opportunity to put some variety on the channel for projects I'm interested in. But the big thing, and this is kind of the only kind of downside to all of this, is my YouTube guy Red Eye Monster, as many of you know on YouTube, has been searching diligently for any kind of hard messaging from Square Enix about what we can put on YouTube and what we can't. And what we have found is that there are some public TOS things saying that we can put stuff on YouTube. We have found other official documentation saying there are parts that we can't put on YouTube. We have found lists of songs that we have told have not been able to put on YouTube. We've also seen official stuff from official sources, but not in actual documents, saying that some cutscenes could in the future be problematic. TLDR, we are still not confident in putting the playthrough on YouTube.
I think that that does suck because the reality is 99% of the time nothing's gonna happen. But obviously Call Carnage is extremely meticulous and very, very tight about making sure that he's not gonna do anything that will get him in trouble or whatever. I know obviously people have been fine with me watching them. It's total. We've never had a problem, etc. But to me, I think it's honestly probably just a culture barrier, because I'm sure that if they understood it the way that the way people consume content here in the U.S., they'd probably be more okay with it. But it's just a culture difference.
So what we're going to do until then is we are going to do little updates, kind of tell you guys what we're doing now. I'm letting you know I'm having a great time. I'm still playing it. I really enjoyed the content so far. I'm currently working through 2.3. Hopefully we're going to wrap up 2.3 today. Maybe we won't. We'll see. maybe at some point we'll get some official notification on us being able to put like gameplay stuff up and not cutscenes. I don't know. But right now, you can find the entire playthrough all on the Twitch VOD system, ko.tv/ff145.
That's
hope,
good.
I very much
That's an
hope
ad? Of course
that
it's
we
an
can
ad.
one day move all this
Yeah,
stuff
of
to
course it
YouTube,
is.
and that's one of the reasons we're
Duh.
collecting it. Once we get any official word from Square Enix, that this is
Yeah,
okay,
duh, it's an ad.
then we are planning on hopefully going to move it to YouTube, and it will be a giant playthrough available throughout the annals of history.
That'd be cool.
However, Square Enix is kind of known for being relatively vague on this stuff, and I've asked them in an official capacity twice and not received a response. So
I feel like as long as it's not Nintendo, you're probably gonna be okay.
don't hold your breath.
Ha!
Yeah, as long as it's not
Taking a
Nintendo.
shot at Nintendo.
Wondering
Nintendo
why I
deserves
haven't
it, though.
done YouTube content lately. It is because I am thoroughly addicted to Final Fantasy XIV.
There you
I'm
go,
loving my
dude.
journey there. I
There
have
you
played it
go,
a lot,
dude.
and I kind of have a lot
Yeah.
to go. And I'd love
There
you to stop
it
by the
is.
channel, twitch.tv/GoCarnage. I'm streaming it anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day, and that's kind of where we are. So, yeah. On that note, we do have a RimWorld playthrough coming up. I do want to be doing some...
I can't watch RimWorld, man, because I just think of Rim Job. Like,
Oh dear God. Okay, I think that's enough. Yeah, we got the point there. But okay, so this guy is thoroughly addicted. I mean, it does make me a little bit curious, but I'm not sure about another MMO to invest in. Right now I'm still playing WoW. I might just give New World the beta out a try. I'll just give it a try, see how it feels. I don't know if I'm going to play the game. In actuality, it would require me to have friends that played it, but probably be giving that a try. But it definitely sounds like Final Fantasy. And look, I played Final Fantasies 1 through 7. Those are the games that I played. So I'm definitely familiar with that world. It definitely seems interesting in that respect. But it does, you do have to invest a lot. I have so much invested in that Warcraft universe, and so I see myself going back to it here and there. Just at times, and again, as long as I have friends to play with, that'll probably be the case. But nonetheless, hey, props to Final Fantasy XIV and that team for making a game that lots of people play and are excited to play, and you can put 6 to 8 hours of content into every day. That's impressive. That's really is something, Let's see, what time are we at? 2:30. You know what? I think that's probably going to be it for now. I do want to watch that other video with Asmongold and Bellular. No, I think I might save that for Wednesday. Kind of make it its own thing. So, I think that's going to be it for now. Like I said, I am, I guess, considered a New World and content creator, and I just signed up for it. It's not like I did anything special. I'm small and whatnot, but they gave me some of those keys, and so I claimed the top one already, and I will download the game, and I think the beta starts tomorrow, doesn't it? So maybe, well, I don't know if I'm going to play it tomorrow. I don't know if I want to play on the first day. But, who knows? Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. I don't usually stream on Tuesdays during the day. Right now, I kind of cut that loose a little bit to do other things. But, I'll definitely be giving that a try soon, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, I just want to give a quick shout out to my team here on Twitch, the charity streamers. I think it's really cool what they do. They stream for charity, and that's something really simple. So when I got the invitation, I said, yeah. Otherwise, if you like what you see, please, again, consider following my Twitch. I'm trying to build this community of casual gamers out there, because I know that there's so many people out there like me that just can't play like these guys, right? 6 to 8 hours, at least not anymore. I can't anymore. And even when I did, it certainly wasn't daily, So please consider joining this community, and there's lots of us out there. We just need to find each other. And otherwise, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.